guys, this is the Scientific Knight here. Today I will be showing you and talking about what I think anyway are the most realistic weapons, or rather straight swords in Dark Souls 3. Now I will be doing other videos on the other weapons, curved swords, rapiers, thrusting weapons, that sort of thing. But for the moment now it will just be straight swords. Okay, so as you see here we have the Longsword. Now I believe the Longsword has a Type 16A Oakshot blade, a Type 2 crossguard and a Type H, I believe, pommel. So in terms of historical accuracy, I mean, this sword is perfect. The blade isn't too thick, it's quite nice. One problem though, as you can see, the attacks are very broad and wide. Like he pulls the sword way too far behind him and really steps too much. I mean, you're meant to step obviously, but not do that and then put yourself completely off balance at the end of your attack like he does. Now here you can see that he is doing an ox stance from German longsword. Well, the closest you can probably get to it in this game anyway. The heavy attacks are once again really slow. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the moveset for this sword because they're just so, all the attacks are just so wide. Now note that I'm not using it in one hand because it is a longsword, so therefore two hands. I mean, you could use it in one hand, but it's just not ideal. So there we go, that's the longsword. As you can see, he's got a scabbard as well. The blade profile is nice, and the blade also tapers to quite a fine point, as you can see. Okay, up next is the Freaknight Sword. It's in fact my favourite sword in the game, simply because of its moveset and sort of real look. I don't know, it just looks quite nice. Of course, it's not completely historically accurate or realistic, although something like that wouldn't be, say, unrealistic compared to some of the other stuff. Okay, so the blade seems to be a Type 18B Oakshot blade. The pommel seems to be an F, I think, and the crossguard seems to be a 9. These are all Oakshot classifications and they may not be right for what I'm calling these. They may be completely different because I'm not a specialist. Now, as you can see, the reason why I love this moveset so much is the R2 is a thrust and not a broad sweep, which is preferably better, especially for this type of sword. It's got a very fine taper, nice scabbard and amazing blade profile. Okay, up next is the Untitled Straight Sword. This would have been my favourite sword in the game if it wasn't for the bloody ice coating the sword, because in actuality it's quite a realistic look. There's nothing fantasy about it apart from the, well, as I said, the weird frosty nipples. As you can see, it has somewhat of a Type 12A Oakshot blade, as well as a Type 1, kind of an elongated Type 1 crossguard, and a somewhat resembling a Type T pommel. This would have been my favourite blade if it weren't for the frosty rubbish, because it just looks really nice. It's got a fairly good moveset. It doesn't really have much of a taper, and the scabbard is a bit weird looking because it's all frosty. But other than that, it's a nice sword and it looks quite historical. Okay, up next is Anri's Straight Sword. You can also consider this the Astoria Straight Sword. It doesn't matter which one, because they're both the same. It is essentially a hand and a half, so I shall be demonstrating it in both one hand and two hands. It's got a thicker blade than the others, although once again not overly thick. A weird looking cross. As you can see, it has a Type 13A Oakshot blade, as well as a Type 4 somewhat crossguard and somewhat of a Type T1 pommel. So once again, historically accurate for the most part, although it's very decorative. A lot of swords back then were decorative, depending on how rich you were. Now this has similar moveset to the normal longsword, which is a bit disappointing, but oh well, it's a nice weapon. You can also use it in one hand, which is good. I mean, you can use the others in one hand, but if you want to be realistic, you just use this. Yeah. Thrust, once again, R2 is a thrust, which is always good, but I don't think it is for two-handing. I think it's just a... Finally, the blade doesn't really taper much, and it's got a nice scabbard. Okay, finally is the Broadsword. It used to be one of my favourite weapons in Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, but unfortunately, even though it's a bit OP at the beginning in this, it just looks ridiculous now. I mean, come on, look how long that bloody grip is, as well as the blade is way too short for it to be a two-hander. Okay, so looking at the blade, it has a Type 22 Oakshot blade, Type, I think about, yeah, Type 11 crossguard, and a Type I pommel, because the pommel's quite fat and it's still a wheel pommel. Now, once again, the strikes are faster than the longsword, but quite broad again, pulling back too far, opening himself up to attacks, basically telegraphing, which I guess just makes this game harder, although I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope that it was somewhat educational, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.